If meaning is real and essential to human life, why does it so often appear unclear, indirect, or mysterious? This question exposes a tension at the core of modern understanding. Meaning is treated as something that should be explicit, definable, and immediately understandable if an experience truly matters. The assumption goes, it should be easy to explain and clearly articulated, yet lived experience contradicts this expectation. The most meaningful moments, decisions that shape a life, encounters that alter perspective, realizations that redefine identity often resist clear explanation. When forced into precise language, they feel reduced or incomplete at the same time. Experiences that are easy to explain frequently feel shallow or interchangeable. This contradiction suggests that mystery is not a defect in meaning itself. Instead, meaning may appear mysterious because it exceeds the limits of simple cognition. Ibn Arabi provides a rigorous framework for understanding this phenomenon. He argues that meaning does not arrive as a single, fully formed object of thought. It emerges through layers of perception. In this view, mystery is not ignorance. It is a structural feature of how meaning is disclosed to the human mind. From a psychological perspective, modern individuals exhibit a strong discomfort with ambiguity. There is frustration when meaning is not immediately accessible, and anxiety when understanding remains incomplete. As a result, experience is often over-intellectualized. Instead of being lived and integrated, it is rapidly analyzed and labeled. Several cognitive mechanisms explain this pattern. The need for cognitive closure drives individuals to seek quick, definitive interpretations. Intolerance of uncertainty heightens anxiety. When explanations remain provisional, reductionism simplifies complex phenomena into easily digestible components, often at the cost of depth. These tendencies produce familiar symptoms. Existential dissatisfaction grows when life is evaluated primarily through metrics, labels, and formulas. Subtle or symbolic meaning is dismissed as vague or unproductive. Experiences that cannot be immediately explained are treated as irrelevant or irrational. Neurologically, this preference for explicit meaning is understandable. The brain favors rapid categorization to reduce cognitive load. However, this efficiency comes at a cost. Meaning does not operate on a single cognitive layer. Not all layers are accessible simultaneously. This creates a gap between how meaning functions and how modern cognition expects it to appear. A framework is therefore needed to explain why meaning naturally presents itself indirectly. Ibn Arabi approached meaning not as a linguistic puzzle, but as a phenomenon of perception and disclosure. He can be accurately described as a philosopher of meaning and how reality communicates significance to consciousness. His work is not an attempt to mystify understanding, nor is it a rejection of rational inquiry. A common misconception is that Ibn Arabi promotes obscurity for its own sake. In fact, he consistently affirms that meaning is real and intelligible. What he challenges is the assumption that meaning can be fully captured at a single interpretive level, cognition. In his view, is layered art. Each layer reveals a different aspect of significance. His key claim follows directly from this premise. Meaning appears as mystery because it cannot be reduced to one mode of understanding historically. This insight anticipates developments in epistemology and phenomenology. where knowledge is understood as situated, progressive, and dependent on the structures of perception. Ibn Arabi's framework aligns closely with constructivist psychology, levels of processing models, and modern meaning-making theories in cognitive science. He provides a coherent account of why meaning is neither absent nor immediately transparent. One of Ibn Arabi's foundational distinctions is between meaning and explanation. Meaning is not identical to the concepts used to describe it. Concepts function as pointers. They indicate significance, but they do not contain it. In cognitive psychology, this distinction parallels levels of processing. Surface-level processing involves labels and definitions. Deeper semantic processing integrates context, personal relevance, and long-term implications. Meaning resides primarily at this deeper level. A real-world example makes this clear. A person may explain why they chose a particular career, relationship, or life path using rational arguments. However, these explanations rarely capture the full significance of the decision. The meaning of the choice includes emotional resonance, identity formation, and future orientation, elements that exceed linguistic compression. Mystery arises at the point where meaning surpasses what language can efficiently encode. This does not indicate confusion. It indicates richness. The key takeaway is that meaning feels mysterious because it is denser than conceptual form. When language reaches its limits, mystery appears not as absence, but as overflow. Ibn Arabi explains the unfolding of meaning through the concept of tajalli, or self-disclosure. Analytically, tajalli refers to the way meaning reveals itself gradually, shaped by time, context, and readiness of perception. The paradox here is important. If meaning were immediately and fully clear, it would collapse depth. Instant clarity would flatten significance into a single moment of comprehension. Instead, meaning unfolds through stages. This process resembles learning curves. Studied in cognitive science, insight often develops incrementally. Early exposure creates partial understanding, which deepens through reflection and experience. Sudden moments of insight are typically preceded by long periods of implicit processing. A familiar example is revisiting a text, event, or relationship years later and discovering layers of meaning that were previously invisible. The meaning was present earlier, but perception was not yet configured to receive it. A crucial misconception must be corrected. Here, delayed understanding does not imply absence of meaning. Meaning unfolds rather than announces itself. Tajalli explains why significance becomes clearer over time without losing continuity to account for how meaning is first registered. Ibn Arabi introduces the concept of the heart in his framework. The heart is not an emotional center, opposed to reason. It is a faculty of integrative meaning. Perception, the intellect, analyzes by breaking experience into parts. The heart synthesizes by grasping significance as a whole. This distinction finds support in neuroscience through the idea of integrative awareness and cross-network coherence, where multiple cognitive systems converge to produce a unified sense of meaning. An everyday example illustrates this. A situation may immediately feel significant before any explanation is available. One may know that something matters without knowing why. The recognition precedes articulation. It is important to clarify that this is not emotionalism. The heart, in Ibn Arabi's sense, is not impulsive or irrational. It is integrative. The insight here is that meaning is often recognized before it is understood. Explanation follows recognition, not the other way around. Ibn Arabi further refines his epistemology with the concept of barzakh.n, intermediate threshold between knowing and not yet. Knowing, Barzakh describes the state in which meaning is sensed, but not fully articulated in cognitive science. This corresponds to insight thresholds and preconceptual understanding. During these phases, comprehension is forming, but the conceptual system has not yet stabilized enough to express it. A common experience illustrates this well. One may feel that an experience is important or transformative without being able to explain its relevance. Attempts to force explanation too early often feel artificial or unsatisfying. Barzakh marks the boundary of emerging comprehension. Mystery, in this sense, signals that understanding is in progress. It is not a dead end. It is a transitional phase between implicit and explicit meaning. Why, then, is mystery so often treated as a failure of understanding? Ibn Arabi's answer lies in the habits of modern cognition. Clarity is equated with truth, while ambiguity is associated with error or weakness. Psychological research supports this tendency. Overconfidence bias leads individuals to trust clear, simple explanations more than complex or provisional ones. Aversion to ambiguity causes discomfort when certainty is delayed. A crucial distinction must be maintained. Mystery is not the absence of meaning, it is depth that has not yet been reduced to explicit form. Obscurity implies confusion or lack of structure. Depth implies layered significance. Meaning appears mysterious when cognition reaches its current limit. At that boundary, mystery functions as an indicator of richness rather than as evidence of ignorance. Practically applied, Ibn Arabi's framework suggests specific cognitive adjustments. One is allowing meaning to mature over time instead of demanding immediate explanation. Another is reducing premature interpretation, which often narrows significance rather than clarifying it. From a neuroscientific perspective, this approach reduces anxiety associated with ambiguity and improves cognitive flexibility when uncertainty is tolerated. Integrative processing continues in the background. These principles are relevant in life decisions, spiritual inquiry, and creative work. For example, rather than forcing a definitive interpretation of an experience, one can revisit it periodically. New layers of meaning often emerge naturally as context changes. The result is deeper coherence and existential stability. Meaning becomes something that unfolds with life rather than something that must be extracted on demand. The central insight of this lecture can be stated clearly. Meaning appears as mystery not because it is missing, but because it is multi-layered. Mystery is how depth signals its presence. Reframed this way, the idea becomes precise rather than poetic. Mystery is not an obstacle to meaning. It is the natural form through which meaning first appears. The intellectual takeaway is that clarity is achieved progressively, not instantly. Understanding deepens through alignment of perception, not through forced explanation. Ibn Arabi offers a disciplined model in which mystery is respected as an essential phase of comprehension. In this model, meaning is not diminished by mystery, it is announced through it.